having difficult conversations makes you want to cringe, this video is for you. Bliss, Love, and Lavender, my beautiful royal family. I'm Nubia Kamisha Sade, Peak Performance Femininity Coach, and welcome to day 6 of 28 Days of Feminine Wisdom. Today, we're going to talk about navigating through difficult conversations and how you can start to master this weird, cringy thing that most women avoid doing. I want to start this video by saying if you find yourself over explaining, overwhelmed, or not communicating and self advocating for yourself, it's completely fine. It's actually very normal to have a slight fear or anxiousness of speaking. This is a very common fear of 98% of people. So I want to let you know that the beautiful thing about this fact is that you can work on this and you can practice this. And with practice and preparation, you will find you will be able to communicate more fluidly, and difficult conversations will no longer make you cringe. You'll actually start to lean into them, knowing what they can actually do for your relationships and also for your personal confidence. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to say about navigating through difficult conversations is setting the tone and actually priming yourself before doing something that you have anxiousness about. So, this means priming yourself for the conversation. So, if you know that you're going to have a sit down with someone and you want to express a boundary, or you find yourself in the middle of conflict, or you find yourself starting a conversation that's ending in a way or navigating in a way where there's some shade being thrown, there's some miscommunication, there's some hurt feelings, there's something being said to you that makes you feel uneasy, and you find yourself in this emotional roller coaster of wanting to communicate. When things are pressed, things are tense, things are going unexpectedly, there's curveballs. You may find yourself wanting to communicate, but not knowing how to find the words, not knowing what exactly to say, or if you are speaking, communicating, and advocating, you're maybe not being understood the way you would like to be understood. Maybe your words aren't hitting the heart of the person like how you would want it to be because you're emotionally charged, or you are completely forgetting what your intention is when communicating or having this conversation, and you leave the conversation not feeling seen or feeling heard. So, let's talk about priming yourself. I'm gonna give you a few things that you can do with priming yourself, and when it's time to prime yourself before having a conversation. The very first thing I would say that is super sensational, and I find this to be very, very effective. The first thing you can do when priming yourself with having a difficult conversation is going to be making your mouth sweet. Making your mouth sweet. So this could mean going into your kitchen, your cabinet, getting some honey, getting some maple syrup, or getting something that is sweet to put in your mouth and to sweeten your mouth. I find this to be extremely effective because it's very challenging to speak negatively or to say things that hurt someone when your mouth is sweet. Try speaking negative when you're eating chocolate. Yeah, it's just not gonna happen. There is a sensational sensory that communicates with between your taste and then your brain. And so, if you sweeten your mouth before having a difficult conversation, you can ensure that this is going to support you when it's time to have this cringy, difficult conversation, when it's time to set this boundary that you never set, or when it's time to check someone with respect. Your mouth being sweet is going to assist you with calming down and making sure your words are sweet or soft or genuine, right? Or just understandable. Sometimes during these conversations, it's not about us being agreeable. It's not about us being super sweet. It's just really about us communicating to ensure that we are understood. And our point is being being validated by us advocating. So, number one, sweeten your mouth. And number two, emotionally prepare. Something that I learned, oh my goodness, look at the deer. It's a deer just walking so beautifully. Okay, Bambi. So, something that I find to be very interesting, it's that most of the time when it's time to communicate and have a different conversation, it's not that we don't know what to say, it's that we are needing to be in the right emotional space, in the right emotional capacity and vibrational frequency in order for us to say what needs to be said. If you find yourself, okay, let's say you're in business, let's say you're a content creator and it's time to create some content, a big part of your career or your job or your brand. And you find yourself doing take after take after take, and something's just not clicking. But then you have days where you're just in it, it's flowing. The first take, mwah, chef's kiss, solid. What's the difference between the day where it's take after take and you do 45 takes of a 15-second clip versus the day where you put on the camera and just like that, you feel it and you go for it and the 15 seconds is done in 15 seconds? The content turns out beautiful, you're super pleased with it, and it didn't take a lot of time. You're confident. What is the difference between that day where you weren't where it took maybe 45 takes for a 15-second clip and you weren't in it? And then the day where it just clicked for you. Well, it's your emotions, it's your feel. Naturally, women, we're hormonal. And each and every day, 30 days, 28 days, 31 days out of the month, it's not identical. So today's vibe may not be tomorrow's vibe. Tomorrow's vibe may be more chillax. I maybe want to just drink some tea, be less talkative. Maybe what's tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, Wednesday, Wednesday. And maybe tomorrow I feel like, okay, maybe after Wednesday, the next day after that, maybe I'm feeling super chipper, very talkative. I want to cultivate 20 pieces of content. This does not mean you're not consistent. And oftentimes we start to shame and guilt ourselves. And this doesn't mean that you're not consistent and you don't value what you do. This just means that your emotions are your emotions. And you have different emotions that greet you and come and meet you and sometimes stay with you and impact the way you show up. So if we're talking about approaching and having a difficult conversation, and we know it could get deep, the best thing for us to do and the best thing for you to do is to put yourself in an emotional state in your heart where you're going to be able to communicate and navigate through the conversation as you're speaking, actively listening, responding, and navigating through to get to the conclusion, the point, the new agreement, the ending, to get to that point in that space. So, here's something that you can do to put yourself in the emotional state so that way you can be able to navigate through this difficult conversation. Pause, settle into your body. A great way to do this is putting your hands on your heart, placing your hands on your heart, taking a breath, maybe 4 or 5 of those things there. And if you find your heartbeat and you feel this rhythm, and you say, you know what? I'm going to have this conversation and I am going to feel at ease. I'm going to feel confident. I'm going to feel secure. So when you pause, you breathe, you feel your heart, and then you communicate to your body and with your body that this is what we're going to feel. You can then move and come from that energy instead of thinking of the energy, the feeling, the activation of confidence. You can come from confidence, instead of thinking of peace and thinking about having a conversation and at the end there is peace, come from a place of peace. And you're going to do this by putting peace into your body. This is how you're going to emotionally embody the energy that you want to propel and how you want to be felt and what you want to be communicated and how you want to come off. So, emotional priming. That's number two. Well, excuse me, that's still number one. That's still number one, actually. So, priming physically, emotionally, and also energetically. As I mentioned, the sweet mouth, the breathing, calming down the nervous system, and then depositing the energy and the emotion that you want to feel inside of your nervous system. So that's number one. Number two, set your intention. Set your intention by the end of this conversation. This is what I want this person to understand, feel, think, or hear. When you go into a conversation setting the intention, you'll find that you will come up with the right words energetically, that you'll be able to navigate back to your point if you get off track or if the conversation starts to turn left or go in a new direction, you're going to be able to still speak your intention and get to the conclusion that you intended to because you set your intention. Most of the time, we're going into conversations, not setting intentions, and because of that, we leave off of the conversation not feeling seen or heard. So when we set the intention prior to the conversation, we can say, you know what, by the end of this phone call, I want my aunt to know that I no longer want her to call me up with drama. You know what? By the end of this phone call, I want to really determine if this friendship is still in alignment with where I'm going in life. You know what? By the end of this phone call, I want this person to know that I am extremely apologetic for how I made them feel. No matter what the intention is, if you don't know what the intention is, you cannot properly put the right words and the right feel and prepare yourself energetically and emotionally in order to have the conversation and have it be something of quality, hit home, and you feel understood at the end of the conversation. So set your intention. And I believe in life in general, it's just incredible to set intentions. Like how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you start to get familiar with setting intentions when you're having conversations, setting intentions when you go to work out, setting intentions when you go hang out with your friend, you'll find that intention is the way of life for you now. And you live an intentional life, which makes you more mindful, more aware. This increases your vibrational frequency and you start to align yourself with your confident, highest version of yourself. So now you're no longer cringing when it's time to have difficult conversations. You actually have the story in your mind that, you know what? I'm very good at having difficult conversations because I can be aware and present in the moment. I know how to prepare myself emotionally. I know how to set the intention and I know how to communicate effectively. So that's number two, set your intention. Number three, detach from the outcome. Now, as an Aquarius, I do this very fluidly. It's very easy for me. But I want to be able to show you how you can learn how to detach from other people's responses and the outcome of the situation. When you set your intention and you say to yourself, by the end of this conversation, I want to ensure that I say, or I want to ensure that I give off, I want to ensure that this happens. When you attach yourself to your intention and detach yourself from how it lands with someone else, you can be able to fluidly have this conversation. So, detaching yourself from the outcome and the other person's response looks and sounds like, hey, this is what my intention is. Because I'm so confident with my intention and I've been practicing and I've been priming myself for this conversation, this is what I want to see happen. When you have that intent, right, you can move forward and be detached to what's going to happen at the end. Just because you want something to happen and you want your aunt at the end of the phone call to be in total agreement with you doesn't mean that it has to happen. but the intent was for you to communicate your boundary, communicate what you feel, communicate your apology. So, having your intention is going to automatically allow you to release and detach yourself from what happens after you complete your intention. You speak your boundary, you speak your apology, you set this new tone for the connection. You address this thing that triggered you. So, when you set your intention and you lead with your intention, and the ending of the conversation is no longer about anything else but the other person and how they received it. So that's a great way to really have the perspective of detaching yourself from the outcome, leading in and leaning in with your intention and just staying grounded in that. And see, confidence is the ability to hold on to the truth. And if you can hang on through the conversation, no matter how difficult it can be, but hang on to the intention of what you intended to say in the conversation, and you will find you are more detached and you will become more detached from the outcome. All right. And then last but not least, and this is one of my favorites because it's super funny, right? To think of this. But this is something that we do a lot as women, right? We want to control what the other person is going to say, do, think, or feel. But our job and our responsibility is to lean in with our intention, detach from the outcome. And last but not least, number 4, reframe from the remixes. How many times have you heard someone respond to you, or you've been able to have a conversation and the person tells you what their opinion is, or you get the result of something? And then you remix it. You do this creative thing that we can do with all of our juicy, beautiful, feminine, creative energy. And you start to remix the answer. You start to remix what a person is saying, what their response is. You start to make stories in your mind or even put words in their mouth. The reason why you want to refrain from doing this is because you want to be able to ensure that you are not making assumptions. You want to ensure that you are hearing a person and providing a person with the opportunity to speak their truth. And if their truth doesn't sound like your truth, that's okay. If their truth or the truth doesn't sound like what you thought it was going to be, that's okay too. Because when you lean inward to remixes and you start to remix things, that's when delusion happens. That's when misalignment is now present. And then you move forward in a relationship, in a conversation, no matter what it is, you move forward, and then there's confusion because you didn't take the word, the response, the new agreement, or the ending of the experience as what it was. You painted it out to be what you wanted it to be. And so when you do that, you start to project and ignore what's right in front of you. You start to project your own images in your mind, and then you start moving and acting. How many times have you seen someone's full potential and then you started treating them like their full potential has been met? Or you've seen someone, we as women, we have our third eye is very activated, and we can have this imagery of someone's highest self. And then we start to move in that energy and treat them as their highest self. Well, what happens with this is we start to act and make assumptions as if they know that we see their highest self. This leads to disappointment, too many expectations, and most of the time, resentment. So, what you want to do is take things as what it is and don't remix. Don't remix answers, don't remix responses. Do not remix. Because here's the thing, when you are able to take things for what it is, it helps you to increase your ability to detach and deal with things as exactly what they are. So, those are four ways you can get more comfortable with having difficult conversations. Number one, prime yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, energetically. Number two, set your intention before having the conversation. And even, here's the thing, even if you are in the midst of what wasn't a difficult conversation, but it started to grow into that, at any moment you can set the intention and stop your mind from racing as you're having the conversation, and then set your intention, even asking for a minute, you know what, give me one moment. Set the intention. Okay, what do I want to see happen? Okay, what needs to be true in order for me to move forward? How can we move this experience forward? Stop, take a moment, take a breath, and even ask for that. Set your intentions, and then you can proceed. So it's never too late to set the intention. But it's incredible if you can do it prior to having the conversation, because it allow you a flow. It will allow you more of a flow. So that's number two, set the intention. Number three, detach from the outcome. Know your intention, know your heart, connect with your heart prior to or during. And then number four, reframe from remixing the response and the answer. We're gonna get, in 2025, we're just gonna get really, really comfortable with having difficult conversations. And then we're gonna actually lean inward to the difficult conversations, because we're gonna know that it's going to deepen our connections, or it's gonna expose and reveal if something is not in alignment. Even if that means us removing a habit, removing a mindset, a perspective, a relationship, an old story that we were telling ourselves. When we can get in a beautiful habit of having difficult conversations, we become high level communicators, and we start to communicate like the queens that we are. So, this has been another amazing Feminine Wisdom Day of February here in 2025. This is interesting. Like, time is doing what it's supposed to do. So, I'll be seeing you on day 7, and we'll be talking soon. As my mother always says, be good to yourself. And as I would say, get very comfortable with making a new comfort zone and navigating through difficult conversations. It could be in that comfort zone for you. You got this. I'm proud of you.